So beautiful you are. All right, by a show of hands, how many are in control of your life? How many are in control of your life? All right, you're a very smart audience. Because you know that if you were in control of your life, there would be nobody that you'd have to compromise with or please, right? So you probably wouldn't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a spouse or a lover. You wouldn't have a boss. You wouldn't have parents, right? You'd have no rent to make or a mortgage to pay. So it's a pretty rare thing to be 100% in control of your life. But not at Burning Man. One of the 10 principles is radical self-reliance. So when I first heard that, I thought naturally about all the things that would mean. What would you need to do to survive in the desert for 10 days? Because Burning Man, the organization, provides virtually nothing. Right? The burn is what we make it. They do provide a system of streets and porta potties and ice and coffee. Those, that's it. That's what they consider most important. They don't provide shelter, food, or even water, right? And so if you forget any of these things, you're up the creek because you can't buy it there either. Right? It's completely decommodified. So, in fact, actually, they are so serious about this concept that every ticket that you buy comes with this. The Burning Man Survival Guide. This is 20 frickin' pages on how not to die in the desert. Because you're going to one of the most inhospitable places on the planet, right? Every day the temperature exceeds 100 degrees, sometimes 110. At night it goes into the 40s, sometimes the 30s. That's a spread of 70 degrees over 12 hours, day after day. There's no humidity. So any moisture that attempts to show itself on your skin immediately gets wicked away. So I thought about what I would need to bring to survive there. Obviously I would need a tent, right? But not just any tent. This would have to be a tent that could withstand 60-mile-per-hour sandstorms. It would need to be bolted into the playa bed with industrial-grade rebar. I would need 12 gallons of water for the week. That's 100 pounds alone. Of course, I would need sunscreen and food and, you know, some clothes perhaps, and bathing supplies and all of that, and a bicycle. You know, Burning Man spans 7 square miles. That's about the size of all of downtown San Francisco. This year there'll be 70,000 people there, so it's far too dusty and dense to allow driving, so we get around on bikes. But they also have to be lit up. If you're not wearing your own lights, your own headlamp, your own L-wire, and a lot more than I'm wearing now, and if your bike is not set up the same way, you are invisible in the desert at night. In fact, this year, it's going to be a new moon, only starlight. And so, yeah, and so if you don't have those things, you're at risk for getting creamed by somebody running you over because they don't see you until the last minute. Worse than that, you risk being called Dark One! And you do not want that. So I thought about how I would get all my stuff there and how I would fly out to the Reno airport and run to the nearby Walmart 2 miles away and pick up my brand new Huffy bike that would have my name on it because it had been prepaid, and run down an aisle and pick up my 100 pounds of water, and run down another aisle and pick up my propane, and run back to the airport just in time to catch the Burner Express bus to the playa. Radical self-reliance. You know, it's a concept that fits me fairly well because I am typically reliant. I'm at home in large groups, and I can even be an extrovert at times, but I actually get a lot of strength from solitude, and I can go long periods of time that way. And so my friends weren't surprised to learn that when I went to Burning Man for the first time 2 years ago, I did it totally on my own. That year, there were 58,000 people on the playa, and I didn't know one of them. Why was that? Well, maybe it's because I was 56 at the time. I'm younger than that now. I was living in the suburbs. Perhaps 10% of my friends had even heard of Burning Man, and I'm sure none of them really knew much about it. And there was no way in hell any of them were going to leave their family and their jobs and all the other things that ruled their life and run out to the desert with me for 7 to 10 days and do it on 2 weeks' notice. That wasn't going to happen. Me, I was self-employed. My divorce had finally come through. My daughter was finally going to college. I was already calling this time Life 2.0. And for me, Burning Man would be the reboot. Little did I know that within weeks of returning home, I would connect with dozens of DC burners. And that within a few months, the number of people that I could honestly call really good friends would more than quadruple in my life. And I certainly didn't know at that time that this burner community, this DC burner community, is one of the largest in the world. I didn't know any of that, but it didn't matter. You know, the pull to the playa was so strong, I would do it on my own. So I sat in my living room looking at all the shit in front of me that I'd have to bring out there and carefully checking it off against a list more than 70 items long, and I thought I knew what radical self-reliance meant. What I didn't realize until much, much later was that it means far more than just taking enough water and sunscreen. Radical self-reliance means being responsible for your entire Burning Man experience. In fact, for your entire life. Out on the playa, how will you live your week? Will you rise early, do acro yoga, take in mindfulness workshops, and eat healthy? Will you pedal mile after mile, surveying world-class works of art? Will you party hard late into the night, dancing for hours on end, and howl at the sunrise? Will you sit around camp and talk with strangers that happen to wander by on a deeper level than you do with your best friends back at home? These are your decisions alone at Burning Man. Will you drink or not? How much will you drink? Will you get high, pop pills, do psychedelics? Or will you take in all this incredibleness in complete sobriety? For me, I learned something new. That radical self-reliance does not mean go it alone. It's a directive to dig deep into your inner self. Find what makes you happy, what inspires you, what brings you to tears, what brings you to life, and to act on it. Because here at Burning Man, you can.